everything crash and burn, why is God not listening to me? Why is God not being there for me? Maybe it's just not for you. When we don't get our way, it's like having a fucking tantrum. I'm gonna have a tantrum and God give me what I want, but maybe
Mhm.
it's just not for you. And that's where that surrender comes into it, to understand it. Some things are just not for you. Sometimes you're meant to go different places. Sometimes you're not meant to stay at a job 20, 40, 50 years, despite what you think your life should be. Sometimes your marriage is not going to last 80 years. Maybe your marriage is only meant to last a year or two because you guys grown apart. Maybe it's not even that it's meant. Maybe it just happens. But I think we fucking overthink sometimes. Most of the time, we're overthinking of the why did this happen? We have to know why. We have to have a reason. It can't just happen, right? It can't just be coincidence. It can't just be an accident. Although we know that there are a lot of accidents that happen on a daily basis. We know in a split second of someone choosing even murder, in that moment, somebody has a choice. Doesn't mean that it was pre planned for that person to be murdered at that time, at that day, on that place. But
Mhm.
at that, in that day, someone with a gun or a knife or whatever, or even jumping someone, in that moment you have a choice. Your actions are going to spark the next things that happen. So I think we kind of forget that and we read a lot into it because, of course, we have to make sense of it. And I think a lot of things are just unexplainable sometimes. And some things we just need to stop blaming, especially the term God, and be mad that this higher energy
Yeah.
is out to get us, or that the devil is creeping, you know, like the devil is creeping. The devil, everything that happens, I hear it. I see it on people's timelines. Oh, the devil's trying to get me this week. And it's just like,
You
no,
know,
your own
too, I think a
actions.
lot of people get mad at God, but they never, well, not never, but rarely do you see people get mad at spirit or creator, right? It's like God is this big, powerful person and he should have stopped this, that, or the other. But nobody gets mad and says, well, if creator is so great or if spirit is so great, why are there all these hungry children? Or why are kids getting molested and raped? Or why are kids being kidnapped and tortured? You never hear that. It's always God. God, 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 God. And this big man in the sky, right? And so it's like God, creator, whoever you want to call it. If this if this big great person made heaven here on earth, what lessons would we have to learn? What experiences will we have to go through? Um, what worries would we have? What would form our choices and our actions and our reactions to certain things? Nothing, because it would be heaven here on earth. There'd be nothing for us to worry about, nothing for us to do. So, but I feel like people always get mad at God, and nobody ever gets mad at. It's like, oh well, the universe didn't want me to have it, but let it be God, and it's like, how dare he? Like, he kind of
He
gets
doesn't love me.
the shit end of the stick. You know what I mean? It's like,
He doesn't love me.
poor man up there, whoever it is, woman, man, I don't know, but whatever it is, that, oh, good Lord, that one gets the shit under the stick when it comes to
It's
things. Like, everyone is so quick to blame that person. Or everyone, too, like we were saying yesterday, I feel like people take certain things in the Bible. Now, I don't believe in the Bible, don't get me wrong. Um, but I hate how people take one verse of the Bible and don't read the whole kind of
right.
paragraph, and then it's like the Bible says this, and it's like, did you read the
Right.
rest of it? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
A
that's
lot of
not
contradiction in that book,
right.
first of all. Let's be real. There's a lot of contradiction in the book. Um, the crazy part is that if we even think about from the time man started, right, way back when, if you look at all the wars, if you look at everything that has happened, it's because somebody was bored.
Mm-hmm.
They were sitting around chilling, wasn't nobody paying rent, nobody wasn't doing shit, but somebody was bored as fuck with their life and decided, like, let's do some crazy shit. Just like I was talking this with my daughter yesterday, and it was just like all these nations that decided, like, let's go pillage the next nation and steal some shit and steal some
Mm-hmm.
land. You were bored as fuck. A lot of these leaders just wanted to conquer, to put their names in a history book. That was the
Right.
whole purpose. I'm gonna go conquer shit and be known for
Of course.
eternity. That ain't got shit to do with God.
Mm-mm.
That was their own conquest. That's their own egotistical conquest of I'm gonna do this, that, and the third to be known, right? And
Yes,
I think,
I
yeah,
see, and I'm not a Bible person, but I don't I don't like when people make up their own meaning. And I actually started realizing that though when they started taking quotes that the president would make. And I don't really watch the news, but I would hear them and I'd be like, who the fuck in the right mind would say some shit like that, right? And then I'd like search it and then read the actual like article or speech and it'd be like, okay, now that makes a little more sense. But when you just read a certain part, it's like, the fuck is wrong with these people? Like, who says shit like that? So I don't, I'm not a Bible person, and if somebody else is great, um, to each their own, to each their own. Like I get it. Religion is religion to some people, but you can't just because you're angry at somebody or don't believe in something, you can't condescend it in that way where you're just running around making up your own meanings
right,
for shit. And you got to realize too, when and if, well, not if because it was clearly written, but when the Bible was written, that was hundreds and hundreds of years ago, right? People
right,
talked way differently. Shit just
right.
sounded differently. So when you
Yeah,
say it now, and you got to remember too, these ages were some really nasty, very violent ages. Very,
you
very,
got
very
stones
violent
in the middle of
ages.
the street and
Right.
motherfuckers help.
You could easily just walk down the street and just chop somebody's head off and people will go about their normal day.
Right,
So when you do read some of these scriptures, you have to also understand when and where it came from.
right,
How
right.
like this is just it's
Time.
it would be conveyed differently if somebody were to speak it or write it now compared to when
Right,
it was written. We're also talking about a time where people didn't really understand time and hours, and that's why they're like, oh, this person had lived till they were 400 and something years old, and both like you got to understand that everything was so different. They didn't really have the calendar and the conception of time and science, and they were kind of just going with the flow back then. Like, all right.
bringing it.
So there's just so many different things, so many different things. And I hate that people take everything out of context with it and try to make somebody feel bad for believing in what it
Right,
is that they believe in. I don't
right,
like it. I don't understand it, especially, you know, um, being a person who feels like religion is something to make people afraid or conform. But as much as it makes people afraid or conform, there's a lot of people that it brings happiness to. There's a lot of people that it brings joy to. There's a lot of people that it brings some kind
it
of
saves
comfort.
saves a lot of people too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially like, not to put it like just being, but when people are addicted to drugs and stuff, and, they do have a way of making religion a part of a lot of treatment facilities and the
Right,
steps and blah, blah, blah. But it does save a lot of people. And if it
right,
saves somebody and they find comfort in it, who the fuck are we to tell them that
right.
they're wrong? Like, I'd rather have them believe in this shit than be smoking a pipe some fucking where.
They
So
really
if
should.
that's what brought you joy and that's what brought you, go for it.
Right.
Go for it.
I wanna address Lisa, wait, your friend. That health is always a touchy subject, right? Because I know, with our modern medicine, and I always say the same thing, how my concept of health and medicine has changed since I've, come into this spiritual life. And I do believe our health is directly connected to our emotions, feelings, things that we've been through, things that we hold on to. And so for me, in my own experience, and I can't talk about anyone else, but in my own experience, from doctors saying, oh, it's just your genetics, it's just this, what I have come to find out is that a lot of things that happened to me, or as far as health wise, have been things that have stemmed from shit that happened to me, events, guilt, shame trapped inside my body in some way, shape, or
Hmm.
form. Only through working through the trauma, only through working through that is where I've been able to release a lot of the things that, from a doctor standpoint, it was like, oh, you're just going to deal with this for the rest of your life. We know people who have actually through spirituality have healed themselves on a crazy level just by going through the that process of releasing and letting go and finding that solace in your energy. So when someone, I have my mom, right, who never really took care of herself, right? And you could tell she suffered from a lot of different things. And she wasn't the type to be very active in her life, even though she wasn't that old, 50, 60, wasn't that old, wasn't active, never really did anything. And then when something major happened to her, her body shut down. She died several times. She was in the hospital about a year. She had to do time in a rehab facility. It was probably a little bit over a year. And she would say that, like, what did I do to deserve this? What did I do to deserve this? And it was just like, do you remember how you carried your life? You were an alcoholic for most of it, mom. Do you remember? You drank straight liquor. It wasn't like you even drank mixed drinks. You fucking drank liquor. Your diet is fucking high sodium. Like what did you think? You had high blood pressure for years. You had your first stroke in your late 40s. What did you think was going to come from it? Like it's like crazy that you can do these things and then expect like, oh, why is this happening to me? Wait, what? Are you serious? And I think she's had a lot of time. She had a lot of time just to sit in a bed and stare at the wall. But it was like she wasn't getting it. It was still like, why me, poor me? That's the victim mindset, right? Why me, poor me? What did I do?
Right.
I don't deserve this. But in so many ways, you do. That's why you're here. Because she died a couple times. And I was like, Mom, if you learned the lesson, your ass wouldn't be sitting here. Apparently, you didn't get the message, and Spirit was like, no, your ass got to sit here a little longer because apparently you don't fucking get it, right? We just gonna bring you back. She died several times. I like literally said goodbye to my mom several times from 2018 and 2019. And it's sad. It's sad to see that. But at some point, you have to own. This is what we talk about, the awareness of self, right? Owning your own shit, owning what you've done to your body, owning what you've done. I know like for me, a lot of the stuff that I went through, and I'm really, my health is actually really fucking good. I really don't have bad health. The only thing that I've struggled with is my sacral, my uterus issues. And now I lost a child at 15. Okay. So the problems with my uterus, the problems that I've had in my sacral chakra have been everything connected to past life and everything connected to the loss of my daughter in this life. So even from tumors, and I will tell you in 2013, I went to the GYN. I had the sonogram and all. That's where they first found that I had a tumor, fibroid tumor on my uterus, right? And I think it was at like 4 centimeters. So I would go every year. You got to go every year to get it checked, to get it looked at. Every year it got bigger, bigger, and bigger. So by the time then my periods start getting crazy, I was bleeding like damn near 30 days of a month. I was having this horrible clotting. I was doing bad, right? All just sacral chakra, all that uterus, right? Nothing else. So then I finally, in 2017, I decided to go get, no, 2016, I decided to try the Mirena, which is a hormonal kind of IUD where they put it in there, it gives the hormones in the uterus to kind of assist to regulate hormones and all that, right? Within like not even a month, no, a couple months, my body aborted, basically miscarried the IUD. Craziest shit ever that I've ever been through. Because I actually like heard it, felt it. It woke me up out of my sleep. And then I was just like, what the fuck? So I called the doctor, made the appointment. But by the time before I even got to the doctors, I went through 3 days of cramping. And mind you, my births were not even that bad. My births were really good. I went through 3 days of just nonstop cramping as if I was going into labor, like if I was in 3 days of labor.